Good evening. I was just telling the Honourable Prime Minister from Jamaica I've had to throw out my speech. Chairman of the conference and heads of the government, the Caribbean community, the Honourable Roosevelt Skerritt, our host, President of Guyana and Brigadier David Arthur Granger and Mrs. Granger, heads of government, heads of delegations, ministers of government, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, His Excellency Edwin Larocque, members of the Diplomatic Corps, invited guests, citizens of the community, young students, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me join with my other colleagues, and in particular, the Prime Minister from Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Rowley, the Honourable Rowley, to give our condolences to a great leader, a great visionary, a man of tremendous insight, and a person that I benefited in knowing, and that was the Honourable Patrick Manning, former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. I also want to take this opportunity to thank President Granger and his Prime Minister and Cabinet for the incredible hospitality we've received so far here in Guyana, and to say I shall be back. Let me thank my fellow heads of government for their warm welcome as a new Prime Minister of St. Lucia. The numerous congratulatory messages received from the entire region speaks to the profound respect given to this new designation, which the people of my beautiful country have bestowed upon me and my government. I'm indeed honored to stand here to represent my country. As the newest head of the state, I look forward to meeting with each of you to discuss how we can further strengthen regional integration. I believe that we did not take enough time to meet with each other outside of conferences. We need to listen more and bond with each other, and maybe then we'll be able to find a win-win solutions that will benefit us all as a region. The recent mandate given to me by my people of the St. Lucia was based on a promise to build a prosperous St. Lucia for the benefit of all. Austerity measures have crippled our economy, while poverty and the unemployment are on the increase throughout St. Lucia. It is therefore with a very focused yet ambitious manifesto that promises to alleviate poverty, rebuild community, reduce tax burdens, commit to the youth empowerment and development, rebuild productive sectors, generate enough revenue to pay for the social services, and more importantly, to put money in people's pocket to meet their needs. It's nonetheless with the blessing of the people of St. Lucia that I, like all previous Prime Ministers of St. Lucia, reaffirm our commitment to an effective and efficient Caribbean community. Such a heavy mandate from the people of the member state means that we will have to collectively find immediate solutions that are cost-effective. This community has made a commitment to the people of the region, and they must feel the tangible benefits of that. We must deliver on a better way of life. Our excuse that progress is hampered by consensus is no longer a convincing nor acceptable. That is why the people are questioning our relevance. The recent referendum that voted for Britain to exit the European Union has put the survival of integration into focus. People are once again asking, what is in it for me and my country? What if our people ask for such a referendum? Are we certain of their response? Have we done enough to create that connection between our people and this community? Why are we so afraid to do more with an organization that has demonstrated that we can punch above our weight in the international arena? If we are an organization whose essence is a better life for the whole, then let our decisions legitimately reflect that principle. Let us trust our councils and work teams. Let them become more engaged and committed to implementation when they have the opportunity. Let us have the good faith to give them the legitimacy that will make consensus decision-making an easier task. We have an excellent human resource in our region. Let them help us to deliver on our promise to our region. Good governance must be at the heart of our reform process. Our people must be at the heart of that process. Colleagues, St. Lucia has always been a member of this community because we believe in the dream of one Caribbean facing the global challenges, united in a dream for a better region. These global challenges are now beating down at the door of the survival of small island developing nation states. They all want their fair pound of flesh for the bare bones of our humanity. We need this community to be a buffer for focusing on the things that we do well. We need this community to create efficiencies that will reduce cost and improve the ability to deliver governance. More of our services, like the police force, the education services, healthcare, and aviation, must be more integrated. More of our policies and our structures that are languishing need to be reviewed or discarded so that new, more effective ones can be put in place. More of our dollars need to be to the benefit of our people. The promise of regional integration is slowly starting to put some flesh on our bones in some areas, and I agree with Prime Minister Gonzalez. We were deeply involved in the development of the Sustainable Development Goals. Of our HIV NCDSC's campaigns have received accolades. We now have Caricom nationals at the head of the Commonwealth, the ACP, the ACS, the CDB, Caricom, and the OECS. We make contributions in all forms to these organizations. How can they benefit the region? I say let them have a focused discussion with us. Let us be more strategic in our engagement with all these organizations and these incredible leaders. I note that we have women at the head of the Commonwealth and the ACS. We need to applaud Baroness Scotland and Ambassador Sudan. It is with momentous and we're very proud of their achievement. It is, however, sad that we are taking so long to achieve the equality for women, especially when all the statistics show they are better educated, from my experience, my mother and my wife being my main examples. And let us consciously review the structures that hinder their inequality. Our membership in regional and international organizations and our relationship with third parties must also reflect our own commitment to democracy and human rights. They cannot be separated. We must never be afraid to ask the questions of our organizations or our allies and those who seek to be our friends. We have a right as a post-colonial countries to insist that citizens of all countries are treated humanely. It would be remiss of me not to say something on tourism. The importance of this major income earner is not reflected in our deliberations or our institutions. We prefer to highlight the negatives. In the words of Sir John Compton, tourism is like a pharmaceutical knife. It cuts both ways. We must mitigate the negatives and pursue the positives. We must put an end to ego-tourism. Let us develop a world-class industry that attracts more than 1.5 5% of the world tourism. Let us make the dreams of all those people who want to come to the Caribbean a reality. It is once said that when the majority of people in the world close their eyes and think of where they want to go on vacation, 90% of them think of the Caribbean, yet only 1.5% of them actually make it here. There's opportunity in those hills. I want to also make reference to a speech I gave in Trinidad and Tobago, because it's about perspective. And I said, I envy being the Minister of Energy in Trinidad and Tobago, not for the obvious reasons as to how much money he gets, but for the fact is that he can get an engineer to come down and determine how much oil there is in the ground, and taking today's prices and future prices, actually put a price to the potential of what that oil has to offer. And therefore, when he goes to the Minister of Finance with cap in hand, he has a very important argument that he could make. Have we actually worked out what the potential of tourism is in our region? And we must stop the idea of determining how much we're going to spend on tourism based on what it's produced, and start thinking of what it can still produce for this region. I also want to take the opportunity to talk about corresponding banks. We had a very successful campaign with the UK on APD, in which we put together an incredible lobbying effort. And I believe that the time has come, and it is calling for us to put together a more effective lobbying approach towards corresponding banking. We must stop thinking that we have to solve this problem alone. Think of the number of multinational companies in the United States of America, airlines, cruise industries, suppliers, individuals who own their homes, who have a vested interest in our region, and who know exactly how to lobby their governments. The idea of us going to Washington, D.C. by ourselves is a tried and tested failure. We must be able to bring more people to the argument, and we must do it urgently. When we speak about perspective, and I was listening to what Prime Minister Gonzalez had to say, I agree with him. We've come a long ways. But unfortunately in politics, and I'm sure he knows this more than I, it's not about what you did yesterday, but it's what you're going to do for me tomorrow. And it reminds me of a story of a gentleman who was a senior, I think he was 80 years of age, and he was in the Olympics. And they asked him, what was the record, because he was in the high jump. What was the record for the high jump of an 80-year-old? And the record was 1.5 feet. So the interviewer said, wow, 1.5 feet, that's not very high. He said, but you remember, at my age, it's not how high you have to jump, but how far you have to fall. So I say to you that it's the perspective of which we look for things. This region still has a ways to go, and there are still many people that are impoverished. So in conclusion, as the newest member of this esteemed group, I may want to move ahead. I may want more action than words. You may have noticed how quickly I speak. Sometimes I will be impatient, but only because another day in poverty for one of my people, for one of the people in this region, is another day that we are failing in our mandate to provide a better life for all. I thank you.